Hello everyone and welcome back to Destiny. Today we got one hell of a reveal stream from Bungie. They showed off the fall expansion titled Forsaken, and they showed off some pretty cool year 2 goodies, including some pretty radical changes to the weapon slot system, alongside some serious quality of life improvements. Today's hour-long reveal is also just scratching the surface of what's to come. Bungie is going to continue the conversation all summer long, leading up to its September 4th launch. In this video, I'll compress and organize all of that information in 7 major talking points for your viewing pleasures. I'm pretty excited to dive into all of this stuff with you, so let's jump into it. Alright, so first up we have story and destinations. Your Forsaken experience will start with a brand new campaign. It's going to follow Cait Six as he deals with the prison break from the Prison of the Elders located at the Reef. Beyond that, we have access to 2 destinations in total. The first is the Tangled Shore, and is described as a lawless frontier filled with pirates and outlaws. As for the new enemy types, we have a new fallen faction called the Scorn. They feature a very gritty, medieval, pirate-like aesthetic and feature new weapons and abilities. They look pretty rad. This area also features something called the Hunt. This is where you have to hunt down a total of 8 Scorn Barons who have escaped the Prison of Elders. We still don't really know the format of how this is going to work, but it does seem pretty cool because each of these Barons will provide a unique challenge and hopefully they will have their own unique rewards. They describe the experience as pursuing the fugitives to uncharted regions of the Reef and ultimately reveal lost awoken secrets. The second destination is much cooler, and that is called the Dreaming City, the Awoken Homeworld. It is described as an endgame destination, the first for Destiny, and it will also serve as the setting for the new raid. The Dreaming City will be filled with secrets and puzzles, and will even dynamically change as Guardians complete the raid week to week. We don't know too much about this space, and that's how Bungie wants it, because as they explained during the stream, learning more might spoil the surprise and even spoil the raid. I think this destination is exactly what we needed. I assume they're going to keep the same raid layer system, and I think it'll work much better with an entire explorable destination to more organically tie it all together. Story-wise, we still haven't seen any signs of Queen Mara Sov or her brother Prince Uldren. However, given that we are visiting the Awoken Homeworld and we see what looks like royal guards around this space, there's a good chance we'll run into her or Prince Uldren, or at the very least we'll be referencing her during the campaign. Anyways, number 2, we have weapon slots. Moving on to perhaps the most important change coming to the game. In essence, you will now be able to equip any weapon in any of your 3 slots. It almost sounds too good to be true. You can choose to run your slot loadout like you had it in Destiny 1, you can put a primary on, you can put a sniper rifle and then a rocket launcher, or if you're a fan of Destiny 2's weapon system, you can keep things the way they are. However, the really interesting thing is that now you can choose to run things like 3 shotguns at the same time, or 2 snipers and a rocket launcher, pretty much anything you really want. They didn't show exactly how the new system would work, but it was also described to be closely tied into the mod system, so it seems you may have to assign a weapon to be kinetic energy or power. We can now see the new kinetic energy and power icons on each of the weapons, designating which one they belong to, since it no longer matters what archetype they are. I think this is smart and pretty close to what I had predicted it would be. However, my version was a bit more restrained based on weapon archetype. Now with it completely open, it of course does bring up some balancing concerns, like running triple snipers in the Crucible, or the game just becoming a rocket fest. Now Bungie has assured us that this won't happen, and they also told us that they will be outlining what the new slots mean for things like ammo economy later in the summer. Now, on the topic of weapons, we have a brand new weapon class being added to Destiny, and that is the bow and arrow. I am super happy about this. I love bow and arrows in games that are primarily shooters. And in Destiny, it looks like it's going to be a high damage weapon. It feels like it will be as powerful as a sword if the ammo capacity is any indication. So you can think of it as being able to do sword damage from far away. We've also seen some of these arrows with some other effects like being able to shock nearby enemies, but of course this could just be an exotic perk. Moving on, we have mods and randomized rolls as the third topic of discussion. Complementing the new weapon slots is going to be a revamped mod system. Sadly, we know even less about the new mod system, however it seems it'll be much more closely tied into Masterworks and is intended to provide meaningful progression for your weapons. The way it was described also gave us some hints at a possible new infusion system that perhaps integrates with Masterworks in some way. The only other thing we really know about mods at this point is that it might be providing you with armor perks. It's hard to say whether or not these are just built into the pieces of armor or whether or not they're provided by mods, but either way, here's one example of some armor perks that we've seen. Here we have a Warlock Bond that deals increased damage while you're on the Dreaming City, and also you take increased damage as well. I like this because it dials up the risk-reward factor, and other similar perk combinations would go a long way in complementing different people's different playstyles. There's a lot of potential here, so I can't wait to see what other perk combos there are out there, especially if they're just built into the armor. It'll give the different sets some actual identity. Now, possibly related to the mod system, we have the return of randomized rolls to weapons. We saw an example here which shows the same weapon with different traits. The Vidoc mentioned the weapons dropping with random rolls, but makes no mention if this will be the standard Destiny 1 style built-in perks, or if we have a way of changing the perks via the new mod system. All in all, I'm very happy for this change, and I can't wait to learn more about it, hopefully sooner than later. Moving on, number 4, another huge topic, and that is some brand new supers. As of right now, we aren't aware of any new entire subclasses coming to the game, but we do have 9 brand new supers, one for each of the existing subclasses. And it looks like they're going to be new progression for our current subclasses, which most likely means that it'll be a brand new branch within the upgrade screen. So the big deal with these supers is that they're completely different than their normal counterparts. We've seen 6 of the new supers shown off in the Vidoc. For the Hunter, we see the new Gunslinger super, and it looks like you toss out a fan of 4 flaming knives. I'm hoping that it's a roaming super that lets you toss out multiple sets of knives. That would be pretty cool. Next, we see the Arc Strider with a bit more of a defensive measure. We saw the Hunter twirling the staff around blocking incoming damage, so perhaps again more defensive, but I hope that it's complemented with being able to maybe throw your staff or boomerang it. That would be pretty cool. For the Warlock, we got the glimpse at the new Voidwalker super, gaining the ability to float around and blink around the map before detonating a void explosion around them. Then we see the Stormcaller gaining a single massive forward beam of arc energy, sure to melt whatever is in front of it. Although sadly, this one doesn't seem to be a roaming super, but it still could be, it just didn't look that way in the Vidoc. Finally, for the Titan, we see a Death from Above style Fist of Havoc for the Striker. It looks like the old slam we know from Destiny 1, meaning that it's not a roaming super, and it'll deliver a huge explosion rather than just several smaller ones. Finally, we saw the new super for the Sunbreaker, where you summon a massive two-handed flaming hammer. It looks like you, instead of throwing it, will swing this around and slam it into the ground, creating a wave of fire in front of you that creates fire tornadoes. That's right, fire tornadoes. It actually looks like it behaves exactly like the Iron Axe in Rise of Iron, which they mentioned was a point of inspiration, so that is pretty awesome. Oh, and it turns out we actually saw 7 of the supers. While I was editing this, I found the Night Stalker super alternate, and that is when you gain 2 knives and essentially become a super anime assassin. It looks absolutely fun, and I can't wait to play around with it. So again, to clarify, these are not brand new subclasses, they're just new supers that will override your current supers. It also seems like they will be locked behind the ownership of Forsaken, which makes sense since it'll probably require some additional progression to unlock. Moving on, we have the next big feature, and that is the new game mode called Gambit. So Gambit looks pretty awesome. It looks to combine PvE and PvP in a very interesting way. You are basically in 2 teams of 4 and have to essentially race to complete the Gambit objective before the other team. You're split off into 2 separate arenas and don't directly interact with each other. The objective is to defeat enemies within your space and collect the items they drop called motes. Then you need to deposit these motes into a bank. Depositing enough motes will eventually spawn a final boss called a Primeval. You'll have to defeat that, and then you'll win if you beat it before the other team does. You can gather up to 15 motes at any time, but you'll drop all of them if you die, so you have to be very careful and be smart about how many you hold on to. Collecting a certain amount of motes will also cause the opponent team's bank to shut down temporarily, spawning a blocker enemy that they'll have to fight before it opens back up. The final wildcard mechanic is that you have the ability to send a teammate over to your enemy's side where they can try to take on the other team and sabotage their attempt. Activision was very right in saying that this isn't a game mode that you'd normally see in first-person shooters, because it isn't. Where you absolutely do see this is in MOBAs, interestingly enough. This specific mechanic reminds me of a very specific map in Heroes of the Storm. It's super smart for Bungie to look at games like Heroes of the Storm for inspiration. If any first-person shooter can pull off MOBA mechanics, it's Destiny. Either way, the mode looks super fun, and since it will be at E3, which I am attending, I will be able to get my hands on it and report back exactly what I think. Moving on to number 6, we have Collections and Triumphs. First up, Collections. They are essentially what they sound like, but just way better. Collections are a way to keep track of and have ready access to every piece of gear and equipment that you earn in the game. It will have its own tab in your character menu and will grant you access to all of your collections wherever you are. That's right, no more having to go to the tower to print out a new sweet business. The exciting thing is that we've seen collections available for exotics, legendary armor, legendary weapons, ghosts, vehicles, and flair, which includes emblems and shaders. And from the looks of it, you can print out a copy of whatever you want from wherever you are, and it looks like the same thing will apply to shaders as well. My guess is that once you get a shader for the first time, you'll unlock it in your collections, and then you're free to print out as many as you want. Oh, and we'll finally be able to mass delete shaders that we don't want. Thank the Traveler. Now let's just hope that they dismantle into materials that we can use to actually get the shaders that we want. That would be smart. Now, what I'm most intrigued with is how this is going to work with legendary gear, but of course we don't know anything about that yet. We'll have to wait and see. Now, Triumphs will be its own tab as well, and they will function similar to record books in Destiny 1. Sadly, all of the Triumphs were currently placeholders, but it was nice to see spots for things like lore Triumphs, and they will track things like scannable objects, and even grant you pages of lore books to read. It's essentially in-game grimoire without directly calling it that. Exciting stuff. We also see a return of a very much needed feature, which is the ability to track your progress on your pursuits. Hopefully, this makes it over to the quest system as well. Collections and Triumphs will go a long way to return the hobby to a lot of players. I'm definitely very excited for it. Now finally, number 7 is the Annual Pass. So first up, Forsaken itself as an expansion will be available for $40, just like it was for the Taken King, which seems very appropriate. Where Forsaken differs is the inclusion of something new called the Annual Pass. This will include 3 premium content updates slated for Winter 2018, Spring 2019, and Summer 2019. The updates are titled Black Armory, Joker's Wild, and Penumbra respectively. These updates are different from what we got in Year 1, and that is that they won't necessarily be focused on any kind of campaign or story. Instead, they are heavily focusing on expanding the endgame, which honestly I prefer. They will inject the game with new activities, new gear, new power, new progression, and honestly, this is what was missing from the Taken King. It had a really great launch, but we ran out of content very quickly, and it led to one of the worst content droughts during the Destiny lifecycle. This was one of my biggest concerns going into this reveal, but I'm very glad that it seems like they've planned out Year 2 of Destiny 2 a lot better. Now, the Annual Pass is $35 by itself, but you can get Forsaken and the Annual Pass together for $70, shaving off about $5. There's also going to be a Digital Deluxe Edition which has some extra pre-order bonuses, which I guess is kinda neat. So overall, I think this is a pretty good price tag. I think it's worth all of the content that we're getting inside of Year 2. Of course, it all remains to be seen, but honestly, a lot of the things that we saw are sort of surefire things that we've all been wanting, so as long as that stuff makes it successfully into the update, I don't think we'll have any issues. But anyways, that was my comprehensive summary of today's reveal. Which one of these topics are you most excited about, and do you think Forsaken and the 2.0 update will restore the hobby for Destiny players? I personally think it will, but it all rests on having those meaningful pursuits to fill in all of those new systems. Anyways, drop a like if you enjoyed this video and subscribe for more Destiny content. And I will see you all next time.